Thanks for joining us in This Week in Turkey. I am Murat, Türsan. Tonight, Turkey may finally be ready to sit down with Syria in lieu of an invasion. Financial Times runs a piece warning Erdoğan about his risky game. Erdoğan attempts to appeal to minorities and it backfires. And yet another music festival is canceled, critics citing religious authoritarianism. My guest tonight will be Medyascope's very own Işın Eliçin, who will be making sense of Turkey's complicated role on the world stage. Our first story tonight, there was major unrest in Syria last night where the members of the opposition to the Syrian government blocked roads, denying passage to Turkish convoys, burnt the Turkish flag, and hurled stones at Turkish military vehicles. All of this stemming from Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu's remarks of wanting to act as a peace broker between the Syrian government and the armed opposition groups. Now, Turkey had been planning a second major military offensive into Syria for some time now, but it could never get Russia and Iran's go-ahead. The reasoning for Turkey being eliminating terrorist elements close to the border and resettling Syrian refugees there. But it looks like Turkey is shifting strategies. Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu held a press conference during the closing remarks of the 13th ambassadors' meet. And regarding Syria, Çavuşoğlu said Turkey would have to act as a broker of peace between the Syrian regime and its opposition. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Tanju Özcan added that the peace process is being stalled due to the Syrian regime dragging its feet. Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu added that Syria could only attain a strong government able to control its territory through unification, and went on to say, we have to broker a peace between the regime and the opposition. Otherwise, there can be no permanent peace. I have had a chance to have a sidelines meeting with the Syrian foreign minister in Belgrade, where Çavuşoğlu conveyed Turkey's wishes. Çavuşoğlu also added that the Russian president proposed a diplomatic meeting between Turkey and the Syrian president al-Assad in the latest rounds of talks in Sochi, Russia. According to reporting, there is currently no high-level talks on the dockets, but the two states are still communicating through their respective intelligence agencies. After Çavuşoğlu's statements, however, there came another statement from the Foreign Ministry's communications office, squarely blaming the lack of peace on, quote, the Syrian regime dragging its feet, saying that no other country has worked harder to achieve peace in Syria than Turkey, and that Ankara's efforts and contributions would continue. And of course, there's still the matter of the estimated 4 million Syrian refugees residing in Turkey. The ministry also added, Turkey, while having served as a host country for millions of Syrian refugees, is actively contributing to the efforts to assure the safe and willing return of the refugees under UN Security Council Resolution 2254. Up next, Financial Times runs a piece on Erdoğan's vague allegiances. President Erdoğan has just come back from Sochi, Russia, where he yet again met with President Putin. Primarily to discuss Syria, yes, but this week, Turkey has also adopted the ruble whilst paying for Russian gas, and definitely doesn't look like it's going to be joining in on the Western sanctions against Russia. Now, as you may already know, Turkey and Russia maintain a very odd relationship. It's hard to tell if they're friends or foes, and the Financial Times piece does a good job of highlighting that, but also warns that all of this cozying up to Russia could also cost Turkey friends in the West. Turkey has also recently joined Russia's international payments processing system so that the Russian tourists' credit cards would work in Turkey, and Russian tourists mean big business in Turkey. All of this, of course, means that Russia could potentially continue to keep its currency afloat and bypass economic sanctions through Turkey. Potentially. Has Turkey given up on its military operation in Syria? Will Turkey cozying up to Russia cost its friends in the West? Işın will break that down in just a little bit, but let's get the details first.
An opinion piece by the Financial Times editorial board puts Turkey in the hot seat once again, saying that the Turkish leader is playing a complex but risky game. The piece looks at how President Erdoğan has continued to maintain close economic ties with Russia, despite the West's attempt to cut off the nation from the world after its invasion of Ukraine. Though Turkey's attempts at achieving peace between Russia and Ukraine have been unfruitful, Turkey has secured a recent minor victory when it managed to keep Ukrainian grain flowing through the Bosphorus by bringing the two sides together in Istanbul. Turkey maintains an often puzzling relationship with Russia. While Turkey is famously a weapons supplier to Ukraine, it is a customer to Russia, which has earned its weapons sanctions from the United States, seeing it ejected from the F-35 program upon its purchase of the S-400 anti-air missiles. The two nations are also at odds regarding their interests in Syria. While Erdoğan has sought to launch a new military offensive into Syria, Vladimir Putin has always blocked the president's ambitions. Despite this, Turkey has not followed suit with the Western sanctions on Russia. Erdoğan has had a bumpy relationship with Putin, a fellow strongman and geopolitical rival, notably over their differing priorities in the Syrian conflict. In Ukraine, Ankara courted Moscow's wrath by providing Bayraktar attack drones to Kiev's forces. But Turkey has not adopted US and EU sanctions on Moscow, is buying Russian oil and gas as normal, and has kept its skies open to Russia's commercial planes, keen to hold on to the lucrative Russian tourist trade. A Russian deputy prime minister said Turkey would begin to pay for gas partially in rubles. Turkey's president was later quoted as saying 5 Turkish banks would adopt Russia's mirror payment system. The piece goes on to argue that any deepening of economic ties with Moscow, however, is likely to inflame friction with the West. But Turkey is simply too important geopolitically for Western businesses, and Europe frets over Ankara's ability to flood the continent with 3.7 million refugees from Syria and elsewhere that Turkey is hosting. In his game of geostrategic poker, Erdoğan should be wary of overplaying his hand.
Joining me now in the studio, Medyascope's very own Işın Eliçin. Işın, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Işın, now let's start with Turkey's strategic ambiguity with Russia. That seems to have changed this week because Turkey has always maintained a very compartmentalized relationship with Russia. So it was hard to tell what was going on. But this week we're getting word that Turkey has actually agreed to pay for Russian gas partly in rubles, and Turkey has also agreed to join Russia's payment network. Now, why is Turkey deepening its ties with Russia, and will it cost Turkey friends in the West? What do you think?
Maybe we should say or ask without saying Turkey, but why Mr. Erdoğan, the President Erdoğan, does so. I think it's about regarding the elections. The upcoming elections might be end of his rule. For 20 years, he has been ruling this country. And, the economic crisis is very deep in Turkey now. Having a relation with Russia that could bring about some money, which we heard already $5 billion came into Turkish banks last week related to the nuclear
power plant that's currently being built by Russia.
Yeah, regarding to that. So these kind of benefits, he immediately needs money because it's only 10 months from now, the election. So I think he needs that. But he expected it from West, I suppose, at the beginning of the Ukrainian war, by being a good member of NATO, maybe selling some military, the famous Bayraktar.
Yes, of course, the drone with the song.
Yes, to Ukraine. But he didn't see that he can get these results that quickly. So I think he hasn't got much choice to have money immediately into Turkish accounts. That's why I suppose also Turkey has already tried to change the relationship with the, Saudi Arabia, as you know, or United Arab Emirates kind of countries. It's all about having some money to make this economic crisis a little less heavy on Turkish.
Still pretty heavy.
Yes, definitely.
To give everybody a refresher, we reported recently that Turkey had finally begun to repair relations with Saudi Arabia. And it was the speculation at the time is because Turkey is in a deepening economic crisis. But please
They
continue.
were much more reluctant than the Russians, I suppose. But in the days to come, we can see other openings with other countries, which all might help Mr. Erdoğan. I think he was asking me a question regarding Syria on that. His chances of winning this election.
I see.
I think I see it like that. I'm not sure whether it is true. Of course, there are other maybe strategic thinking behind, but I'm not that sure.
No, fair enough. It is at this point very speculative, but it's not too much of a stretch to say that Turkey is looking for economic opportunity. Because recently, I believe it was in Bloomberg, that Turkey actually has an energy deficit of 191%. And who has that energy? That's Russia. Right?
Russia. And as to maybe our audience might think, what about the sanctions? And Turkey do not part of these sanctions. Turkey says it will only accept the sanctions when it is by United Nations, okay? And Turkey is dependent, as you mentioned, on Russia on many fronts, not only on energy. And but this doesn't amount to sanction busting. As long as it stays so, it's okay I think, for the West. They have to just live with that for a while, as long as Turkey really do not bust the sanctions.
I see. So your take on it is whoever greases Erdoğan's wheels, not Turkey's wheels necessarily, whoever greases Erdoğan's wheels gets to be his friend. All right, let's move on to Syria. Now, last night, Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu made a few comments that has caused quite an upheaval in Syria. But in doing so, I'm wondering if he has caused yet another crisis to occur. Because he has made comments that de facto, not officially, but de facto has given a glimmer of recognition to the Assad regime. But will this move further damage, I should say, U.S. relations and Western relations?
I'm not sure. Again, it depends on how Turkey will act afterwards. I mean, for example, will Turkey have an operation together with the Syrian regime against the Kurdish forces there, which also an ally for United States? If it amounts to that, such kind of a move would, of course, make United States very angry, I suppose, and then they react. But without that, I think they wouldn't say anything. And also, for example, United Arab Emirates, Jordan recently started relations with Syria. They changed also their positions. And Arab League will thinking of taking Syria back into the league. So I think if United States, not openly, but had a big reaction to all this, they wouldn't do that. So I think in a way, United States also has to accept that Assad is there and will be there for a while, and they have much more bigger problems, and the war in Ukraine and also China now with the Taiwan issue. I wouldn't say they would be very angry.
All right, so bygones be bygones. Wasn't usually the United States motto, but in this particular instance, we might actually skate, you're saying. Okay, one final question. Now, just weeks ago, Turkey was talking about launching a military offensive into the sovereign nation state of Syria. Exactly. But now they're talking about, hey, maybe let's try diplomacy like they did in Ukraine and Russia. It didn't work out too well, but maybe this will be different. My question is, why now? Why the diplomatic option now?
Again, it was something that Russia has long been asking from Turkey to do so. It's much more in the interest of Russia that Turkey wouldn't stay already where he has taken, and also wouldn't have any operation. That's obvious. And it's Adana agreement that I think in 2019.
I think Astana.
No.
Adana?
In 2019, first, Putin mentioned the Adana agreement between Turkey and Syria to fight against the, terrorist organizations together. There was an old agreement between Syria and Turkey. So he bring about this agreement. He talked about that, and he wants a kind of refreshment of that agreement, kind of thing. I think this time Turkey accepted this, Erdoğan accepted this offer because, again, it's related to the elections. It has long been the election promise of opposition that Turkey will send the refugees, the Syrians in Turkey, back to their countries via talking to Assad and repairing the relations. So if Erdoğan can be able to do it before them and before the elections, and it might, he might maybe send not all of them, but a few thousand people back to Syria, that would be very good for his election position. I mean, people will vote him maybe because of that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think he will lose, but it looks like from where we stand, it looks like that, but it might change. We have 10 months more.
Well, he's definitely not going down without a fight. You are stellar. Thank you so much for coming into the studio. I didn't even actually know about that agreement, so thank you for enlightening me. That's why you're here.
Thank you.
Işın Eliçin, thank you so much for joining us. And in other news, President Erdoğan paid a visit to a cemevi in the capital this week. That's a house of worship for Alevis, a sect of Islam endemic to Turkey. The visit at first seemed like an olive branch to Turkey's Alevi minority, but later drew mass criticism from both Alevis in general and one very notable Alevi. That's the opposition figurehead, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. Now, previously, President Erdoğan had been very cold towards Turkey's religious minority. President Erdoğan makes no bones about being a religious man, and he is a Sunni. Alevism is a radically different sect of Islam. Well, with the elections closing in, as Işın said, it looks like President Erdoğan is trying to get whatever votes he can. And he isn't doing it very gracefully at the moment, because Erdoğan reportedly violated a very important ceremonial procedure during the visit that made many think that he was not being sincere. Let's go to the details.
President Erdoğan visited an Alevi house of worship in Ankara this week, which many at first saw as a glimmer of hope for the recognition of Alevism as a legitimate religion in Turkey. According to several sources, Alevis make up about 5% of the population. A religion endemic to Turkey, Alevism has long been an oppressed religious minority. To this day, Alevis are not recognized by the government as a legitimate sect, particularly by the very devout Sunni AKP. President Erdoğan finally made a historic visit to Hüseyin Gazi this week on a day holy for Alevis. However, though Erdoğan's visit was welcomed at first, it quickly garnered criticism after the photos of the gathering began to circulate. Typically, in Alevism, the leader in charge of the sermons sits at his post, a central position behind the images of Prophet Ali and Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of the Republic. But the images of Ali and Atatürk were notably absent behind President Erdoğan. Instead, Erdoğan sat in front of Arabic calligraphy with the images moved to an adjacent wall to the right of the president. Many saw this as a disingenuous attempt by the president to garner votes, but still thinking lowly of Alevism. President Erdoğan was previously quoted saying, "If Alevism is a religion, that's no religion for me." Main opposition party chair Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu did not agree. Kılıçdaroğlu, an Alevi himself, stated, "This attempt, in the simplest terms, is a product of some of my best friends are Alevis. It's completely insincere to visit an Alevi house of worship on the last day of the holy month, and it's a sad attempt to pander to Alevis. By the very core virtues of Alevism, it is impossible for Alevis to sympathize with the likes of AKP."
And finally, yet another music festival is canceled in Turkey as the government tells the kids to get off its lawn. Well, it's not directly coming from the government or the municipality this time, but a religious NGO connected to President Erdoğan. Reportedly, Zeytinli Rock Festival has been canceled after a religious NGO with President Erdoğan's son, Bilal Erdoğan, on the board, sent the local municipality a letter which led them to revoke the permits for the festival. Now, President Erdoğan isn't exactly a big fan of musical gatherings. During COVID measures, he took the opportunity to ban music after midnight, and technically that ban is still in place. It's not clear exactly why the president has a dislike for music, but most say that it is likely due to religious values. Or he just doesn't like young people having fun. Well, that would roughly be the opinion of Cahit Berkay, the frontman for Moğollar, a legendary old-school rock band in Turkey. But he says that it's not hate, It's fear that motivates them, saying that every government in this country's history has feared a youth they sought to control, but failed. Here's that story.
The Turkish government has once again banned a music festival this week. Zeytinli Rock Festival is the latest one among a string of bans that the government has instituted this year, leading many to conclude a growing authoritarian streak in the religious right. Most notably, earlier this year, singer Melek Mosso's concert was also cancelled, though she was later let on to perform. Another cancellation was the Kurdish singer Erdoğan show, whose concert was cancelled by the municipality, claiming that the paperwork for the show had not been filed. A claim later refuted by the event organizer, who posted receipts of payments for the paperwork. The Zeytinli Rock Festival has already moved once. One in 2008 from Balıkesir to Izmir, and after a 4-year hiatus starting in 2010, launched again in 2014. The concert was this time cancelled after a complaint was launched by the Society for the Spread of Wisdom, a religious nonprofit organization that provides housing for students and, according to their website, to carry out educational and cultural activities that will contribute to the growth of a society that adopts, protects, and develops national, moral, religious, spiritual, and cultural values. President Erdoğan is known to have close ties to the organization, as his son Bilal Erdoğan sits at the board of directors of the NGO. Upon the cancellation, Cahit Berkay, the frontman for Moğollar, a legendary rock band in Turkey, spoke to Medyascope. Whatever negative things have happened in this country, they have always blamed the young. They want to create a docile and obedient youth. This is not possible. I'm 76 years old now. Every government that has tried to govern this country has always been afraid of the youth.
And with that, that's it for us on This Week in Turkey. I have been Murat Türsan. Folks, if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel and support us on Patreon if you can. A special thanks to Kathleen Phelps for voiceovers, and a special thanks to you for joining us.
Türkiye'nin sivil, bağımsız, özgür ve çoğulcu bir medya ortamına ihtiyacı var. Medyascope 20 Ağustos 2015'te bu ihtiyacı karşılamak üzere yola çıktı. Ama yolumuz uzun. Bu yolculukta bize Patreon veya YouTube'un katıl butonu üzerinden katkıda bulunabilirsiniz. Destek verin, sizinle güçlenelim.